Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. I'm here today to do a clip on a topic that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I think the timing is perfect for it. And the concept of the clip is that I think it's super important that if you're serious about drones, that you take and pass that Part 107 test the minute it's released. I'll give you some details on why I think that's the case, but essentially I've been studying the FAA's opinion, local government's opinion, federal government's opinion, legal opinions, and what we've got here is a situation where there's a gigantic vacuum around what laws apply to the drone operators out there. Now, I know the FAA has regulations on the book today. They're changing them with 107. A lot of states feel that they're not restrictive enough, and a lot of townships and even parks and homeowners associations have decided we don't want drones flying over our area, so we're going to put our own laws into effect. There's a lot of confusion there. So I think what the FAA is trying to do with 107 is put a stake in the ground that says we're the authority, the ultimate authority that guarantees safety in the national airspace. That's our charter, and local towns can't impede on that. So the FAA has the absolute authority to govern the operation of these small unmanned aerial vehicles from the ground to the heavens, and that's their purview. And I think once 107 becomes law, that's going to be the law that's going to sort of slap down a lot of these local bans. And I'm hoping that's the case. Now, I've done one clip already on how I hate these local bans and how confusing they are. I've got another one I'm working on with a lot more detail that probably is the most ranting video I've done because I'm really fired up about this. But I think when 107 becomes law, there'll be two camps. Then that's what the FAA is trying to do, is to create this, I'll call it a professional camp and a hobbyist camp. So the professional camp will be the pilots that have passed that Part 107 exam. And what that means is that that group has taken the time to study, to pass the test. They've exhibited responsible behavior because they understand the regulations. Probably they're getting insurance for their drones if they're doing commercial operations. So it's a camp that they know the quality of that flyer, right? That the regulations apply to it. As they make changes to regulations and maybe even expand some of the privileges, that camp gets them first. The other camp, the hobbyist camp, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this, but the hobbyist camp are the people that don't want to take that test, that aren't maybe that serious about droning or don't drone that often, don't want to spend the money to take the test. I understand all those problems. I completely understand if you're in that hobbyist camp, you get up in the morning, you want to fly your drone in your backyard or take it to the beach and fly it. Why is the government telling me I can't do that? I completely understand that, and I support that level of freedom. But honestly, once this test comes out, I really think there's going to be a fork in the road between the drone pilots and the hobbyists, and I think that there's going to be restrictions on what hobbyists can do with the drones where maybe there won't be on the pilot side of the house. So I'll go through some of those in detail. Having said that, I also think it's a good thing that they've come out with these regulations because it's the first time that there's been a basis federally or nationally that says to the states, we've already got a rule for that. You can't put a second rule in place that limits what we can do in that airspace. The airspace is governed by us, and here are the rules that have to apply. So I think the pilots, first thing, I think the pilots are going to sort of be maybe exempt from a lot of those local bans, which will be left standing for the hobbyists that have to fly under those local bans. So anyway, let me get into it. So the first thing is obvious, is if you pass 107, the benefit you're going to get immediately is the ability to do commercial operations. And that can be as simple as filming your neighbor's house for a couple of bucks because he wants to get a view from the sky, or doing a full-time job working for a real estate agent doing videos for them they can use on their website. Or maybe you've got a friend who's in the wedding photography business and wants to get some shots from the air of the bride and groom. There's a million different ways you can make money doing this, and I haven't even thought through all the ways yet, but I think as a drone operator, having the ability in a moment's notice to go out and fly that commercially and make a couple extra bucks doing a hobby that I love is a no-brainer for me. So I want to have that ability. I also feel like if I want to insure my drone, down the road, the insurance companies may mandate that they're only going to insure drones that are Part 107 approved, which means you're a pilot. So if you're trying to get insurance for the drone, even though you get some insurance if you join AMA, having higher levels of insurance that protect you and your drone and your operations might be a good thing. And again, this is all speculation, but I feel like once this divide takes place, there'll be two classes of operations, and I think this class of operations with the pilots will have expanded capabilities, especially around the commercial operation of those drones. All right, so the second thing I'm talking about a little bit deeper is the expanded privileges. I really feel like the states are wrestling with how do they control, and the national parks are doing it, different beaches are doing it, certain townships are doing it. How do they control the operation, the safe operation of those drones? Up until now, the FAA regulations, I'm not going to say they're a suggestion, they're kind of the law of the land, but they were really difficult to enforce, and they were not widely distributed. So a lot of the states that have passed these bans, I'm watching their meetings, they tape their meetings before they do the vote on these bans. They're not even really informed as to what a drone can do. I've seen meetings where the council members in the room that were voting on this were talking about how drones can fly for hours at a time and they weigh 150 pounds. They're not informed about it. So with the lack of information they have on these commercial operations or regular operations of drones, they're passing laws out of fear. And I understand that they want to protect their citizens. I completely get it that, if a knucklehead is flying a drone near a beach over kids or over the beach, and flying low and taking pictures, that's the guy you want to take the drone away from. There should be some penalties for that. But the pilots and even some of the hobbyists that have flown for a long time understand that that's not the way we operate our drones. But I feel, unfortunately, once this law passes, this class of operations, the pilot class of operations, will enjoy probably expanded privileges that allow them to be exempt from those bans, those local bans. And I think the way that's going to work itself out is once you pass that pilot certification 107, you'll get a certificate, you'll get a pilot's license. And just like any other license you may have gotten, whether it be a driving license or a dog license or a fishing license, if there's an officer of the law nearby and you're flying the drone, they may wander over to you, and instead of saying land that drone immediately, you're flying in restricted airspace because we've got a ban, they may say show me your pilot's license. And if you don't have the pilot's license, they're going to issue a ticket. Now again, this is all speculation, but I feel like there's this back and forth between state and federal regulations that can't continue. I'm never more frustrated than when I go to a beautiful location to put my drone up and then find out that I can't fly there because of some knee-jerk reaction of a local town that says, we don't want drones flying over our town, stop that right away. It's frustrating to me doubly because the FAA is saying I can fly there. There is no restrictions as far as the federal authority is concerned. It's a local restriction. So hopefully these expanded privileges will be built in. A couple other expanded privileges that I think are going to come down the pike. I think that 107 is a starting point for relaxing a lot of the other restrictions that are there now. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There's been tremendous pressure from large commercial operations like Amazon, UPS, FedEx to use drones for delivery of home goods. Amazon in particular spent millions of dollars developing drone technology to deliver packages to your front lawn. They didn't, in the FAA's first iteration of this 107, didn't give Amazon the right to do that because they still have the line of sight requirement built in, which means I can't fly it any further than I can see the drone. That doesn't work for Amazon unless they've got a warehouse in every corner. So they're going to lobby hard to get that restriction removed. I think once that restriction is removed, where line of sight is no longer a mandate, the pilots are going to enjoy that expanded privilege as well, whereas the hobbyists may not. They may say for hobbyists, line of sight's still in place. For pilots, it isn't. So that's just one place it could go. I also think that there are going to be other things introduced around drone regulations that'll relax some of the things that are out there today. And I think the pilots are going to enjoy those expanded privileges. So passing 107 not only gives you the commercial operation rights, but it may give you some expanded privileges down the road, which I think are good to have. The last one, which is a little more nebulous, but I think it's still really important, is even if I'm wrong in everything I've said before about the expanded privileges, if I happen to fly my drone in an area that I've done the best research I can, I don't see any local bans in place, and I put the drone up and all of a sudden a park ranger comes running over to me telling me to land my drone, I think I've got a decent argument at that point, having my pilot certificate as Part 107, to at least have a rational conversation about, officer, I understand there's a ban in this park. I didn't know that. I'm flying my drone under the regulation of the FAA, and I have a pilot certificate here that's been granted after passing the test with the FAA that shows I'm a responsible pilot. I think you can have a rational conversation with that officer at that point and maybe make a good case. If you don't have that certificate, it's going to be a hard case to make. You can just say, I didn't know, and then throw yourself on the mercy of the court at that point. And you can argue you're blue in the face about how the FAA regulates, like I do all the time, from the ground to the heavens. They could care less. If there's a ban in place, they have to write that ticket. They have to deal with the law as it's written in the book. So maybe I'm looking too much there on how much gravitas that adds to the conversation. But I think having the pilot certificate, there's something about being a certificated pilot that carries a little bit of weight in a conversation, whether it be an officer of the law, or it be a neighbor complaining about you flying the drone too close to their house, or somebody at a location you're flying coming up and giving you a hard time. I think showing them that, saying, look, I take this hobby very seriously, to the point where I spent money, I trained for this, I passed the test, it's been issued by the federal government, so it's a much more serious situation than, again, the guy who runs into an Apple store, slaps a battery in the thing, gets on his cell phone, registers the drone, and then takes off and drives like an idiot through the parking lot, right? It's a whole different animal, and I think that may carry some weight with the public. So I know this is a controversial issue. I just felt like I had to get it off my chest. I don't want to come off sounding preachy. I mean, my opinion could be totally wrong. If you guys have contrary opinions, please leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. We do these clips to try to sort of provoke these conversations so that all of us are thinking about these issues. And when we have a chance to talk to friends or legislature, or if we're talking to regulators, we can develop a common opinion of sanity, I think, around this hobby. I love flying my drone. I've said that before in every clip pretty much I've made. And it frustrates me that people don't understand that these things are wonderful to fly. And if they knew more about them and knew how responsible we really are with operating them, they'd fear them less. And I'm hoping that clips like this and conversations like this get us all a little bit smarter and a little bit more rational about this the situation, so that the laws tend to be more relaxed over time instead of being more restrictive. So anyway, we love to hear your comments. Drop them below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Pass it around among your friends, and thumbs up are always good for us as well. As long as you guys are still enjoying these, and it looks like you are, we'll continue to do them. So thanks an awful lot for watching, and have a great afternoon.